إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. There's been a growing fitna in our community, and in fact many growing fitnas in our community that are interrelated, and all of these fitnas have had an impact on something which until recently we considered a normal fact of life, and that's the idea that children grow up and eventually they get married and then they have children of their own. Right? This is the norm. This is how society has always been. This is something we all took for granted. But over the past 10 years, you would have noticed that more and more of the youngsters are not getting married for a variety of different reasons. Some have no interest in marriage, some don't want children, and some are caught up in various forms of immorality that take them away from marriage. And we don't talk about this enough. We don't talk about the impact that this will have on society in the long run. And so what I want to talk about, not just today, because this is a very long topic, what I want to talk about perhaps over the next few weeks, maybe the next few months, is number one, the importance of marriage. Number two, how to educate and raise our children in a way where they take this concept seriously. And number three, the various fitnas in our community that are getting in the way of marriage. Now, this topic can get very controversial because some of the fitnas we have to discuss are things that people are very caught up in. Right? Various movements in the world today that people are passionate about. But we have to be clear and explicit that these movements are un-Islamic. And the road they are taking the youth down is very, very dangerous. So we have this problem today where people don't want to get married. And it's not just a Muslim problem. It's a global problem. Across the globe, from the USA to South Africa, across the globe, marriage rates are going down. In every country that has been affected by these various fitnas. And the Muslims are no different. Right? When I meet youngsters today, in the past, maybe there would have been someone would say, I want to get married when I'm 20. Then he changed to I'll get married when I'm 25. Then when the next generation is I'll get married when I'm 30. Now we have a generation who say, well, I don't see any need to get married. Why should I get married? Why do I want the headache of a wife? Why do I want the burden of children? I'm free. I'm enjoying my life. This is a problem. Maybe if one or two people had that mindset, it wouldn't be a problem. But when it's becoming a norm, when it's becoming the default mindset of the youth, then this is a problem. Because this is going to interfere with the continuation of the species and the continuation of Islam and the Muslim community. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, "Tanakahu takasar." Get married and have many children, so my ummah will be large on the day of judgment. First, we stopped with the having many children, right? But now we stopped even with the getting married part. We are moving further and further away from the sunnah. Why? Well, I put together a list of reasons why people don't want to get married anymore. Internal reasons, meaning problems within the Muslim community, and external reasons, problems from the broader society that are impacting the Muslim community. And I have over 10 reasons listed here. I will not be able to go through all of them in a single khutbah, so perhaps I will split this over 2 or 3 weeks. But let's start off with some of the more obvious reasons. What I'll do is I'll discuss one internal reason, then one external reason, and keep switching like that. Let's start with the internal reason that many of us are guilty of, but we don't take seriously, and we don't realize the impact it has on the youth. And that is the jokes we make about marriage. I want us to think about this very seriously, right? How often have you been for a nikah? And someone will give a lecture at the nikah saying, a silly joke like, oh, when you get married, there's 3 types of rings: a wedding ring, an engagement ring, and suffering. And all the elders laugh at the joke. But we don't realize the younger generation, at every nikah, they are hearing about suffering and about, marriage being a chain and marriage being a prison. What do you think that does to their mind? What reason are you giving them to want to get married when they are older, when the only thing they are hearing from the time they are little is that marriage is suffering, marriage is an imprisonment, marriage gets in the way of freedom? What message are we giving them? And I know sometimes we think, oh, it's just light jokes. Maybe for one generation it's a light joke. But for the next generation, with everything else, with all these other factors we're going to discuss, it is putting them off marriage. It is distancing them from marriage. It is making them not want to have anything to do with this concept that they link with suffering. So my first simple advice to all of us, stop with the negative jokes about marriage. Stop with these jokes. Have no positive value for us as a community. They are not doing any good for the community. We are getting a few laughs at the detriment of the mental health of the next generation. So stop with these jokes. There is no good in this kind of humor. Now let's go to an external reason. And this topic is something that really, it's going to need a khutbah of its own. But just to bring it up, because it needs to be brought up, because I don't hear anyone talking about it, is the fitna of individualism. Nobody talks about this. And this is, to me, the biggest fitna affecting our youth. What is individualism? It is this new culture that it's all about me. It's this new culture that it's all about what I want. That's my life, my rights, my freedom, my joy. It's all about me. It is the worship of the self. That's what individualism is. And many of our youth have been afflicted with individualism without even knowing it has a name. Because they are growing up in a culture that is very individualistic. It's a culture where everything revolves around you. If you look at social media and the way the youth engage with social media, it's all about how many followers do I have, how many likes do I get, how many people love me, how many people take me as an influencer. It's all about the self. Now when somebody is all about themselves, they become egotistical. Their life becomes all about what they want. And now they see a spouse as getting in the way of that. That, oh, I have less freedom if I get married. I have less chance to do what I want if I get married. I won't be able to live the life I want if I get married. And in children, don't even think about it, because children are definitely going to get in the way of that egotistical culture. So we have to talk about individualism. Inshallah, perhaps I'll give a khutbah on that later on in the series. But this is a topic no one's even mentioning. And it is destroying our communities to such an extent that recently, for the first time, I think ever, I've heard cases where a woman would say, I want a divorce. And you'll ask her, what's wrong? Is he abusing you? Is he bad to you? And she say, no, I have the best husband in the world. He takes care of the kids, he takes care of me, he spoils us. But I want me time. I want to focus on me. I want space so I can do what I want. I don't want to have any duties towards a husband or children. That's why I want a divorce. If you don't think individualism is affecting us, then try and understand why is someone in a happy marriage looking for a divorce because she wants her space. Because she only wants to focus on herself. This is the fitna of individualism. And it is affecting us on every level. It's the reason why children don't listen to their parents. It's the reason why people don't want to get married. It's the reason why people don't want to have children. It's the reason why some people don't even want to work. It's all become about gratifying one's own nafs. And this is a major problem that is destroying our community. Switching back to the internal reasons, right? The reasons within our community why our youth don't want to get married. And another reason why they don't want to get married from within our community is that they are overexposed to horror stories about marriage. Let me give you a typical example that happens in our households. All the aunties get together and they start talking about what's wrong with this person's marriage, and what's wrong with that person's marriage, and this person was abused, and this person was divorced, and this person went to that. And all the young girls are sitting and listening to these stories. Never do they ever hear a positive story about marriage. Never do they ever hear a story about someone whose marriage went well. Never do they hear a story about someone whose marriage is happy. All they hear from the time they are kids are horror stories. And you want to know why that young girl's not interested in ever getting married? Look at what you are feeding her. The West is feeding her all of these lies about zina leading to happiness, about zina leading to love, about zina leading to fulfillment. And we are feeding them these horror stories about marriage leading to abuse, and marriage leading to oppression, and marriage leading, and maybe in some cases it does, but we feed it so much that it seems like that's the norm and that's what everybody's doing. When in reality, those are the exceptions, not the norm. So, how do we counter this? Start showing your children positive examples of marriage. Starting with your own marriage. Let your marriage be a role model to your children. That I want to have what my parents have. That should be, their number one goal. I want to have what my parents have. And maybe, in some cases, the parents don't have it, right? Maybe if there are things beyond one's control. Someone's divorced, someone is widowed, whatever the case may be. Show them other examples. Maybe their uncles, maybe their grandparents. If not even that, at least the seerah. Show them the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and what marriage brought to his life. Show them the examples of the Sahaba and what marriage brought to their life. But show them positive examples and positive stories about marriage to counter this narrative that it is something bad. We have to do this. We can't be just either making bad jokes about marriage or talking horror stories about marriage and expecting the next generation to think that it's something good. This culture has to change. We have to start portraying it in a positive light. Otherwise, we're going to see an entire generation, or we are rather already seeing an entire generation who are not interested in getting married. Switching over to the outside factors that are causing the youth not to want to get married. Very obvious one is the ease of access to haram. More than ever, young people have access to every haram imaginable. And when that haram has become normalized, and they don't even see it as haram any longer, and they don't even see it as a sin any longer, and they just see it as a normal thing that they do every day, why would that person ever want the responsibilities that come with marriage? There's a lot more controversial things I can say about this, but it's stepping stones. It started when 20 or 30 years ago, we started discouraging those people who had multiple wives, and we started encouraging them to have affairs instead. This is what our community did. They said, I'd rather my husband have an affair than have a second wife. So first we started saying, affairs are fine. Right? So that's major sin. People started normalizing it so somebody doesn't do halal. Now it's gone further than that. Now we have teenagers in zina. It's normal, they're experimenting. Na'udhu billah, experimenting with sin, experimenting with evil. Fear Allah. We must fear Allah as a community. We are heading down a very, very dangerous path. It started with something else, it's gone all the way downhill. And now, building upon that, there are even bigger fitnas affecting our youth. Fitnas that we never even imagined 20 or 30 years ago. The filth that they are bombarded with through the movies and the TV shows that they watch. Many of us of the older generations can't even imagine these levels of fitna. There are alternative lifestyles, these alphabet lifestyles being promoted to them that are pure sin. They are nothing in there but sin. It is completely sinful, and you're not even allowed to say that anymore. And they are being taught by their schools, if they don't go to Muslim schools. They are being taught by Netflix, they're being taught by their cartoons, they're being taught by their video games that this is normal, that this is good. 20 years ago, we were being taught to tolerate it. Now they're being taught to celebrate it. Can you imagine a child growing up in that environment with no counter narrative? Can you imagine the impact that has on their soul? And now we see it. We see it in our communities. We see it that this fitna has entered the Muslim community. That there are Muslims out there who are identifying with these immoral cultures. And we have to counter this. And inshallah we'll have entire khutbahs about this. And that brings me to the last reason I want to discuss for today. And like I said, I have a list of 10 reasons. We will split them over a few khutbahs. But the last reason why I believe that our youth are not getting married, or if they are getting married, they are getting divorced very quickly, is because we're not preparing them for marriage. And let's be honest, how many parents sit with their teenagers and talk to them about marriage? How many parents sit with their children and their teenagers and teach them what it means to be a good husband or a good wife? What are the rights and the roles and the responsibilities? How to make a marriage work? To be honest, many parents have raised their children for divorce. That's why they've raised their children for divorce. They tell their children, if they give you any trouble, you'll get a divorce. I'm teaching you this in case you get divorced. In case you get divorced. You know how many kids have been raised on the in case you get divorced mindset? Why would they ever want to get married if all the year growing up is in case you get divorced? How many of us have actually taught him how to be a good husband, how to be a good wife, the importance of marriage, that as a parent you expect your child to get married at least by the early 20s? Well, we have made this a taboo topic. That's what we have done. And some parents say, oh no, I'll talk to my child when he's 25 or 30 about marriage. By 25 or 30, they've already committed so many major sins. It's become very difficult to undo it. Nowadays, you have to start talking to your child about these things when they are 10 years old. That's a fact. The world we are living in, from the time they are 10, you have to start having conversations. You have to teach them about puberty. You have to teach them about reproduction. You have to teach them about how babies are made. You have to teach them about the marriage and sanctity of marriage and the importance of marriage. You have to teach them about the immoralities out there and why it is wrong and why Islam does not accept it. The job falls on the parents and the educators. And we have failed on both fronts. How many of our Islamic high schools offer courses on marriage? Preparing children for marriage. Preparing teenagers for marriage. How many of us teach them about how to lower your gaze? How to remain chaste? How to avoid zina? We don't. Our education system doesn't cover these topics. We just expect people to automatically know it. No one's going to automatically know it. It falls upon teachers, it falls upon parents to educate the next generation. And if we don't do so, we are part of the reason why they are not ready for marriage and they don't want to get married. So these are just few of the fitnas that we are facing that are getting in the way of marriage. Whether it's the jokes we make, or the horror stories that we tell, or the fact that we don't have these discussions with our children and our teenagers, or the outside influence of individualism and feminism and the alphabet people and all these other fitnas that are affecting the society, we as parents have to play a role in raising our children in such a way that they understand the importance of marriage, they want to get married, and that we also facilitate for them that marriage when the time is right. Subhana Rabbil Izzati Amma Yasifun wa Salamun ala al-Mursaleen walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين ونستغفره ونؤمن به وتوكل عليه أما بعد. So how do we talk to our kids about these topics? Again, for many of us, these topics are taboo. They're things that we don't bring up at all. And then parents are shocked when their kids fall into sin. Parents are shocked when they learn their 13 or 14-year-old is involved in major sins. We have to have a talk with them long before that. We have to teach them right from wrong. And one of the things you can do to help them avoid the evils and the fitnas out there is to teach them the beauty of marriage, to teach them the importance of marriage, to teach them the benefits of marriage. We don't do that anymore. We take it as a default that when they get of age, they're going to want to get married. But by the time they get of age, they are so used to the haram and they are so surrounded by haram and they have so much ease of access to haram and they're so caught up in their own selves, they don't want to get married. From a young age, you must teach them the beauty of marriage. How do you do that? What do you focus on? We go back to the verse I quoted at the beginning, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, from amongst His signs is that He created from amongst you your spouses to live together in peace. And He has placed love and mercy between you. These are signs for those who think. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings about 3 benefits of marriage. Building homes of peace, love, and mercy, compassion. That these are the benefits of a marriage done the right way. That when someone chooses to get married in a way that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that marriage is founded upon taqwa, and that marriage is done in the way that is right, then that marriage, inshallah, and there are exceptions to every rule, but inshallah that marriage will be a source of sakinah. It will be a source of inner peace. That marriage will be a source of mawaddah. It will be a source of love. That marriage will be a source of rahmah, of compassion and mercy. Teach them about the importance of continuing this ummah. That the Prophet ﷺ told us, "Tanakahu takasaru," get married and have a lot of children. He taught us this. That you expect your children to grow up and have their own children. You expect this as a parent. And have these conversations with them. The importance of having children. The benefits of having children. The joy and love and beauty that children bring into your life. It's a sad thing that, when you read the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that Allah has made beautiful women and children. Meaning, the things that men are supposed to love the most are their wives and their children. But now we live in a time where people don't want wives and they don't want children. Meaning our fitrah has been so corrupted that people no longer see children as a source of joy. They see children as a burden. They see children as an unwanted responsibility. And if a lot of people are doing this, what's going to happen to the next generation? Will there even be a next generation? So parents, teach your children the importance of the fact that one day they will have their own children. And that that's a good thing. And that those children will be a source of joy for them. And that the relationship they have with you, inshallah, they'll have the same relationship with their children. Right? So they need to have a good relationship with you. Another thing, a benefit of marriage to teach your children is izzah. That marriage brings about dignity and honor. While all of these haram lifestyles bring with it disgrace. Disgrace in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, disgrace in the eyes of the believers, disgrace in the eyes of society. That when someone chooses a lifestyle of zina or any of these other evil lifestyles, they will be disgraced. They will be disgraced. People will look down on them, people will backbite about them, people won't want anything to do with them. Even though these things are being normalized, this is just the fitrah. It is the fitrah, no matter how much people try to normalize sin, it is the fitrah that people look down upon others who are involved in a lifestyle of sin. It's just human nature to be disgusted by a lifestyle of sin. But when someone chooses chastity, when someone chooses to lower their gaze, when someone chooses to restrain themselves from sin, when someone chooses to get married and to take up the responsibilities of marriage and to make their marriage work, they become dignified and honored in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the eyes of society as well. Who do society look up to? They look up to those who make their marriages work. They look up to those who take up the responsibility and fulfill the responsibility. They look up to those, because those men who are able to be responsible and make a marriage work are the ones more capable of leading businesses. They're the ones more capable of leading organizations. They're the ones more capable of leading society, because they show they are capable of leadership. So teach your children that marriage brings with it honor and dignity, while all these other haram lifestyles that are being bombarded with on the media bring with it disgrace and bring with it a lot of problems. There's a lot more we can say about this topic. As I said, we will split it over a few weeks. We ask Allah to protect us from the fitnas of our time, and to protect our youth from the fitnas of our time. There are a lot of fitnas out there that are taking them away from the fitrah, from the natural way of life, towards all kinds of immorality, including immoralities we couldn't even imagine 10 or 20 years ago. We ask Allah to protect us from this, to revive the culture of marriage, to revive the culture of dignity and honor, to make us once again the honorable nation. I end by reminding everyone that Islam is now the main barrier between this world and immorality. Everybody else failed. Everybody else caved in. Everybody else said, okay, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And they all started accepting all the immoral lifestyles. The only barrier now between this world and immorality is Islam. And we have to stand our ground. This is a intellectual jihad, where we have to stand our ground, stand for what is moral, even if you get cancelled, even if you get banned from entering certain countries, whatever the case may be. But stand for what is right, because we are now all that stand between this world and immorality. We ask Allah to protect us and guide us. Subhana rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.